Well met, everyone. I am Rich the Lich, and today I'm going to take you through a fun fights video. Let's jump into it. If you've seen any of my fun fights videos, you know the drill. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open up D&D Beyond. I'm going to click on the Monsters tab. We see down here that there are 76 monsters. I have all of the D&D Beyond content, so what it allows me to do is efficiently show the digital version of all of the books. I can sort monsters by CRs, names, alphabetize, all sorts of filters, what things are only present in deserts and forests and so on and so forth. So 76 pages tells us that there are 20 monsters per page, 76 pages of monsters within all of the official books, as I have all of D&D Beyond's current content. Basically everything that WotC has officially released, we're going to have access to every possible monster that's been officially written, as far as I know. So what I'm going to do is with 76 pages, I pull up this little dice roller thing, and I'm going to roll D100 percentile dice. I will ignore everything 77 and above, so let's just roll it. 3. Okay. So we will find a monster, easy enough, on page 3. And what I'm going to do here, and the reason why it's done randomly, is it just shows you that by taking some principles, thinking through some things, and finding a routine, a pattern of habits that you use in your encounter and monster design, it doesn't matter what pops up on the screen. We can create any sort of a situation where your PCs are to engage in this combat, and you can always make it a little more exciting, I should say. We can always spice it up just a little bit. So we're on page 3, right? There should always be 20 monsters on the page. That's just how it lays out on screen. So let's just make sure. The Amphisbaena from Ghosts of Saltmarsh is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 at the Ancient Gold Dragon, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, there's 20 monsters. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to randomize using this online from Wizards, actually, app or whatever you want to call it, and I will roll the d20. I get an 18. So we will look at number 20, number 19, number 18. Today's monster that we will create some sort of fun situation with is the Animated Halberd. Of course, we will click on it. There's no picture. Oftentimes I like when I see a picture because, besides just seeing cool pictures, it kind of informs me. There may be some things that might spark the creativity there that I can run with to use to turn this into an interesting encounter. There isn't a picture, so we'll just go off of the stat block. What I do here is I will print screen, and then we'll go into Photoshop, and I'm going to paste. If I'm kind of finagling my way in circles here, I have a microphone thing in front of me. My Wacom is sitting at the table. My keyboard's way up there. Whatever. You don't need to hear all my BS. So I'm going to take this guy out, and we're going to cut and paste it. We're going to get rid of this. We'll throw this in the corner so we have it as a little reference point, right? Now, doing this little cleanup here, I say it all the time. It keeps me in creative flow mode. This is not necessary. Whether I have a stroke on this or not doesn't affect the cool encounter. Now, the intention would be I lay all this out, I have my map and so on, and even though I'm using a certain paper size in Photoshop here to be more efficient and accommodate video format, I would create probably an 8.5 by 11, or in this particular case, I'd go landscape format, and I would go 11 by 8.5, and lay all this stuff out and write my notes and so on, right with the Wacom tablet. And then I'll print this out and bring this to my table as sort of my little cheat sheet. So that way when I track I'm going to zoom in a little bit. When I track the hit points of this Animated Halberd, which is 17, I can just simply write right down here, I can write 17. And then I can write, he's on initiative count 6 or whatever. And then, maybe on one round he takes 3 damage, so he's at 14, and then he is stunned. Yes, I'm writing it with a Wacom, but this would be just where I can write all the various notes that I need, right? So this is laid out not just for video purposes. I want to bring it with me to the table. So let's see what we have here. Okay, this is all I have to go off of. I don't have a picture. What are we looking at? First and foremost, the one thing you always want to consider is this, which is the CR. This thing is a 1/4 challenge rating, so very low level. I think if I was to look at the numbers of it, 4 of these things would be somewhat of a challenge for level 1 PCs. So we're looking at really low level stuff. You're going to want multiple of these, right? Now, the reason why that's important to identify that is no matter what I do to spice up this encounter, one thing you want to think about, though, when you're trying to make something cool is you often will have to incorporate some sort of environmental aspect to it. So where is this thing? Where's this encounter going to take place? And what can I do with the environment to make that place, that encounter, more memorable? What things can I add on to the creature? What things can I take away from the creature? The reason why you always want to consider the challenge rating is quite simple. You don't want to skew this thing and all of a sudden turn it into... You don't take goblins and just give them all power word kill, right? Because that skews their CR so much based on their capabilities. So if I was going to create a very exciting environment for this monster, it's only a CR 1/4. So this is probably a very low level 1 through 3 encounter. Understand that your PCs don't have insane athletics and climb checks. They may not have the ability to fly in magical potions. So you can't create some lava filled hellish cavern at level 1. It's just not going to read well, or it's not going to come out well on the table. So you have to first always consider, in manipulation and changing the dynamics of any given encounter, what is the CR of this first? So we have a small construct, okay, unaligned, whatever. So AC 15, 17 hit points. I'm just reading through and see if anything sticks. Okay, this thing flies, all right? So I did say you don't want lava floor, but I may have something to do with the environment where this thing has an advantage, not meaning he rolls 2 d20s, but he has the advantage in the environment because he's able to fly, and the assumption is the PCs at low level are not able to. Nothing to write home about on stats, saving throws. Okay, let's see what sticks out. He's immune to a bunch of conditions. It's a construct, right? So he's got blind sight. Okay, let's see. Anti-magic susceptibility. The halberd is incapacitated while in the area of an anti-magic field. If targeted by dispel magic, it has to succeed on a con save throw. Okay, that basically, if he fails that dispel magic, the halberd is done. Okay, false appearance while motionless. It's hard to tell it from a normal halberd. All right, so here's what I'm thinking, right? We're going to go draw. We're going to create a room. Beautiful. Okay, so we got this going on, and we're going to have these little... Good. Right? We got that going on. And we'll go here. Boom, boom. Control-C, Control-V. Move this over. Edit, transform, flip horizontal. These are principles. I'm using the tool set of Photoshop, but it's definitely not necessary at all. Okay? You don't have to worry about it too much. You can draw this on paper. So we got this going on, right? These are alcoves. There's a door here. PCs, enter. Let me just draw them in. So we're going to use green. That's a good group PC color, right? So we got 5 dudes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 heroes. And then the red will be the bad guy, which is our halberds. Okay? So we have 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's 14 halberds. That's a lot. Okay? So what we'll have is, let's create some sort of a bubble. A bubble of magic is always purple because I say so, right? So we got this bubble of anti-magic. Anti-magic. PCs. Bad guy. Fair enough, right? Okay, so we have this bubble of anti-magic, and it's floating above this weird ley line infused tile scape. You don't know what the hell is going on. It's not a invisible or a... There's a floor. It's a solid surface that PCs and stuff can stand on. Okay? But there's just this weird... Almost like, think of, in tile work, right? If you have tiles here on this floor, and you have these grout lines, right? The mortar, so to speak, between the two stone objects you're trying to stick together. Imagine the grout lines, though, it's a very organic, flowy, serpentine type feel, right? It's not laid out in grid lines. So you've got these grout lines on this floor that are sort of just, and you can explain it to the PCs this way. As they approach and they go into this room, it's snaking. They can see it moving, you know? You tell the PCs that there is this weird ley line energy, this magical energy, and the casters especially, they can feel it. You may also, and let's start adding in some bullet points. Wild magic. Cast a spell in room. Roll on sorcerer. Wild magic. Let's look at D&D Beyond real quick. There he is. This thing. There it is. Wild magic chart. D100. Right? So every time you cast any spell in this room, you can explain that there's an obvious abundance of magic and you're not sure how the ley line or the energy or the flow of this magic that's pulsating through the floor is going to affect and manipulate your spell casting. Okay? Now, why am I having this whole magic thing with this giant orb? Giant orb of anti-magic field? Now, very quickly, the halberd is incapacitated while in the area of an anti-magic field, right? Let's look at D&D Beyond. Where was I? Let's see if I can get back to it. Ancient halberd, animated halberd. The beauty of D&D Beyond is I can simply mouse over. An incapacitated creature can't take actions or reactions, okay? So basically, while he's in that field, he isn't doing anything that turn, right? So the goal is, we have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we have 14 bad guys. That's a lot, even though it's a low-level encounter. If you have 5 level 1 PCs coming into this room, they're not going to be able to take 15 halberds that are flying at them, 14 halberds that are at them. You know, yeah, I'm rolling a d20, but still, what am I doing? +3 to hit. Yeah, 14 attacks at 1d10 plus 1. I'm killing PCs. There's too many, so they need to do something. But they need to not be in this anti-magic field as well. Now, of course, you want to grid this out, especially. And the reason for that is I need to get an idea of what sort of scale are we talking about this anti-magic field. Okay? And remember, the grid is just for the sake of layout on the battle mat. You're not creating a gridded floor. Remember, we have an organic tilescape. Okay? The ley lines are moving in more snake patterns. They're not moving through regular square grout lines. But what it's done is we've created, and I know it's a big jumble mess, but we've got like 5, 10, 15. It's not centered, but we have about 17 and a half. So a 15 to 20 foot radius of anti-magic in the center of the room. That doesn't move. The PCs can't interact with that. Okay? If the PCs are standing in that and they're spellcasters, they're dumb, right? They would know it's an anti-magic field. Anti-magic in and of itself is something that is way beyond the level capability of anything that PCs of an appropriate level for this encounter would be dealing with, right? So they're going to have a hard time dealing with this. But maybe there's something they can do to get the halberds to go into that. Because what it does is it kind of slows them down a little bit. And all maybe they have to do is just manipulate themselves, you know, and move in circles around it a little bit. But what we can do is we can say that it's a small construct, right? It's not very big. So what we can do is let's just use this here. And let's look at push real quick. Let's see if anything pops up. Shove, maybe? There we go. Using the attack action, you can make a special melee attack to shove a creature, either to knock it prone or push it away from you. If you're able to make multiple attacks, you can replace one of them. It must be no more than one size larger. We're dealing with small things, so it makes sense that they might be able to push these weapons away from them, right? It's like a floating spiritual weapon, right? It's just a floating halberd. It must be within your reach. Instead of making an attack, you make a strength athletics contested by the strength or acrobatics. You succeed, automatic if the target incapacitated. Don't worry about that yet. If you succeed, either knock the target prone or push it 5 feet away from you. So here's what we're going to do. Somehow, maybe just straight up at the beginning of the encounter, say to your group, hey guys, really look up the shove mechanic in the player's handbook. Like, you want to think about that. It's a little bit of a hint, okay? Maybe you don't want to go that overt with it, but if they aren't figuring things out and it's feeling like, you know, we need to shut these things off and they don't know how to get them into the anti-magic field, but they're getting their ass kicked and they're just constantly, because of course the halberds with a fly of 50 feet, they're just going to keep circling around it. You know, they're going to engage the PCs. And if it feels like they're about to TPK your group, maybe start indicating to them, hey guys, minimize some of them. Instead of just straight up dealing 17 damage to 14 different things, start getting around it. Stand in these squares. Any of these squares that are around it are within 5 feet of the anti-magic field. Now, again, the field doesn't exude any aura beyond what they can see. Draw it on your map, you know, create some terrain piece and say, that's the anti-magic aura. And within 5 feet, even if they're away from you, you know, old school Street Fighter throw style, they can grab the damn halberd and throw it this way. It doesn't have to be a push. Yes, it's called the shove action, but just use, and that's it. Balance the encounter, it all, by interpreting. That's the beauty. The shove mechanic. Loosely. You can take anything for the sake of creating cool stuff. And that might be the biggest lesson from this whole thing versus the mechanics of what I'm thinking about here. You can take anything in the books and just manipulate it a little bit and play with, when you're on a rickety bridge, play with the acrobatics mechanic a little bit and your rogues and your and those that are very dexterous. And don't just adhere strictly to the rules. Create some cool mechanic where, even though the book doesn't say so, say that there's some dangling chains that they can actually use an acrobatics check to make and try and reach for. And if they fail, they make a dex saving throw and so on and so forth. In this regard here, the shove means it can be a grab and pull. It can be a literal shove. It can, you know, whatever. You're just trying to take something, which makes sense because it's a smaller object, a smaller entity. So... and it might help with the real strong characters in the group. If you have a barbarian or you have some dragonborn with a high strength, he may be the one that's most efficiently able to grab these things because he has such a strong strength athletics check. But just interpret the shove mechanic as the ability to grab something and move it somewhere where it doesn't want to move on its own. And as long as you stand around this and they fight here, the halberds are going to engage. Okay, don't turn this into... they don't have range combat anyway. Don't turn this into some dumbass standoff combat where the halberds just never get near it. They're maybe not smart enough. They're certainly not to know. They're going to engage to these 5-foot squares. But within these 5-foot squares, reminding your PCs so they don't have to just spend their one single attack action to deal up to 17 damage to all these different targets, they can simply just use the shove mechanic and roll against that. Whether it's the... I mean, I have a dex +4, but all I'm doing, they don't have any skills here. I'm immune to all these conditions, right? But I'm not immune to incapacitation. So acrobatics, maybe they're only rolling +2. And a strength athletics, a +1. That's the opposed check, a d20 +2 or +1 for the halberd to try and not get shoved into this anti-magic field. And if they do, they're incapacitated. Is incapacitated while in the area. Okay, how long? I don't know. Maybe say that after, you know, every 4 rounds, the anti-magic field dissipates and shrinks in on itself for a moment. And at 4 rounds, all those halberds that were incapacitated pop back up. And they leave. Of course, they get out of there quickly. But then, on the next round, it's floating again. Okay, which gives the PCs a chance once again to throw things in there. But what it does is it thins the numbers and it allows the combat to be a little more manageable. So they're only dealing with 6 or 7 halberds per round instead of 14 attacks. That is how you can take something sort of low level, you know, and manipulate things and change it around so that you can create something exciting and be able to have a fun battle. and create 14 halberds, because they're all in the alcoves, all, as it says here, right? The false appearance. They're all weapons that are inside the hands of 14, 7 per side legendary heroes. And the PCs go into this ancient tomb of the fallen champions. But they notice that there's 14 stone statues, 7 in each of the alcoves on each side. But the halberds look a little loose. They look like they're weapons that could be moving. And then once they get into the room and the door shuts, video game mechanic style, once they all get into the room, the door closes, and until you kill all the bad guys, the 14 halberds, the door doesn't reopen. Sure, maybe there's an exit door over here, whatever. But that is how you can create kind of cool story, but then all of a sudden when you look at it and you say, what did I just say? When you look at it and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, that's cool that there's 14 statues, but now I got to have to deal with 14 freaking monsters. That's a lot. That shows you how you can kind of wrangle it in and create something exciting, something fun. And that's the point of the Fun Fight series, is take a base encounter, spice it up a bit, and create a more memorable experience for your group. That's all I have for you folks. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care.